Hey, Binspa University, Brendan here, and I am super excited. Today we're talking about lifetime value, and this is my favorite lesson to teach because of how important it is. This is probably the number one metric that you need to understand. You need to understand how to calculate it. You need to understand what it means, how to manipulate it, how to increase your lifetime value. So today we're going to go into all those things. Might be a little more boring, probably not as much videos, more numbers, a little more math, but this is absolutely the most important metric. We use this along with customer cost of customer acquisition, which will be the next lesson. And combining those two metrics should give you all the decisions you need to make on your day-to-day basis for the business. Now, before we get into it, lifetime value, you could look up the general aspects somewhere else. You could watch it here. I'm going to kind of hit the basics. As we go further, you could skip ahead if you're past the beginner level, where I'm going to go into actual for bin cleaning, a little more in detail, how we can look at lifetime value, and then how we can actually increase every variable of the equation that we're going to make. Otherwise, we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to make a big cardinal sin with lifetime value, or CLV. You might see it as customer lifetime value. The big cardinal sin I'm making is I'm going to talk about it in terms of revenue today. Typically, you're going to see this in terms of profit. Now, in our industry, this is going to be hard to calculate, and it's going to be highly variable, highly changing. Because in our industry, the profit margins for every single person are different. This isn't someone walking into a retail store and buying a shirt where the profit margin on the shirt's the same no matter who buys it. We're highly based on geographics and other factors, right? One customer could be making a certain profit margin for us, and then halfway through the life cycle, their neighbor signs up. And now that stop marginally creates a lot more profit because we're in the same location. We're not using gas. We're not using time. We're not using extra labor. It's very low. So in that sense, the profit margins just change drastically. For the sake of making this somewhat easy and making decisions, we're going to look at lifetime value in terms of revenue for the rest of this presentation. But if you have any questions, you want to talk about the profit aspect of it, I'm happy to go into that as well. So going right into it, lifetime value. How do we calculate it? This is kind of the standard way you'll see all over the internet, online, when people talk to you. It's pretty simple. APV is the average purchase value. Multiply that by the average purchase frequency rate. And then finally, you take that over the average customer lifespan. Pretty simple. We're going to break that down, and then we're going to take that into the bin industry specifically and show how I like to look at this equation just a little bit differently. Okay, so getting right into it with APV, your average purchase value. There's a few ways to calculate it, but in general, if you want an average for your business, just take the total revenue in that time period and divide it by the number of purchases in that time period. Here in a minute, we're going to talk about breaking this down by segments, by demographics, geographics, by service type. But to use an easy example, monthly service. The total revenue in a period, let's say the period's a month, it's easy to calculate, is whatever price you have for your monthly service. The number of purchases in that period is going to be 1 because you have 1 monthly purchase in that monthly period. Now, if we do quarterly, you got to do some extra math and divide it by 3, right? Because we're looking at a third of the time period based on being quarterly. Pretty straightforward. We're going to get into an example here if this doesn't make sense just yet. Goes right into average purchase frequency rate. Pretty straightforward as well. This is going to be the number of purchases in a period divided by the unique number of customers. So if you're doing it based on your service, your quarterly or monthly, this is pretty easy to get. Now, if you're doing an average of everyone, then use the equation, or you just have to do some extra math and make sure that we're only taking in a year, right? 4 quarterlies, we're taking 12 monthlies. So you have to make sure you proportion them however your business is segmented, whether it's bi-weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, quarterly. Just make sure the ratio, the math makes sense. Okay, going right into ACL, the average customer lifespan. This is pretty simple. This is just how long do customers stay on with you, right? If a customer stays on forever, then it's an annuity. It never ends. It's infinitesimal for you. But, right, the average customer is not going to stay on forever. So we have to figure out how long does the average customer leave. This is going to be a combination in our industry of people just move, people don't want the service, something happens, you do something wrong, they have different preferences or tastes, a competitor swoops in. There's a million reasons why they're going to leave. There's only so many that are in our control. So we're going to talk about how to reduce this, but pretty simple, pretty straightforward. To calculate it, it's just 1 divided by your churn rate. And your churn rate pretty easily, that's just the number of customers who left during a period divided by the customers that start the period. Now, we can talk about this once again. Let's segment this here for a second. Your churn rate is not going to be the same all year round. So you can take your average yearly churn rate, take however many customers you started that year with and how many you lost, and that's your churn rate, right? We could do this by the month. We could say, hey, at the beginning of the month, I had 1,000 customers. I lost 20. Okay, so our churn rate is 20 divided by 1,000. All right, and then our average customer lifespan would be 1 over that. It's important to understand what you're looking for when making decisions here, because your average customer lifespan and your churn rate, like I said, your churn rate especially is very seasonal. So if we're saying, hey, man, I have a really great churn rate, you're probably talking about the summertime. If you're like, hey, I have a horrible churn rate this month, okay, well, in the wintertime, that's more likely in our industry. So on average, you want to kind of look at it as a year, probably a better picture. But if you want to understand by month to month, so you can expect the future, you can have better decisions, you can plan better for the future, then yeah, absolutely make sure to understand like your churn rate's not going to be the same. So when you make decisions, when you're calculating, do you want the average? Do you want the average for a certain time period, for a season? These are all super important to consider because they're going to give us different numbers, lead us to different decisions. Okay, so kind of going right into our first example here. If you guys want to understand how you calculate this, I won't go in too much depth. If you have any questions, I'll post some other answers, some other questions, probably a quiz as well here so you can do some practice. But let's say, for example, this fictitious company, let's say they do monthly and quarterly cleanings. They charge $25 for their monthly, $35 for their quarterly. They got 85 monthly customers. They got 16 quarterly customers. Their churn rate for monthly is 0.06, and their churn rate for quarterly is 0.04. I just made those up. They're probably pretty accurate. In fact, in general, you should see probably a higher churn rate for monthly. There's a lot more frequency for the monthly. You usually have more customers depending on how you started marketing in the first place. I find that I have a lower churn rate with quarterly. Now, there's some math I could do more work on, but in general, my gut's telling me quarterly, right? We talked in our other lesson about pricing. There's more marginal utility per visit because it's less frequent, right? If you got trash bin cleaning every single day, the marginal utility is not great. If you got it once a year, that one cleaning has a lot of utility for you. So you should probably have a lower churn rate the more infrequent your services are. Okay, so in this example, these are the numbers. So right away, our APV, we're taking an average, right? So we're going to do $25 times $85 or times 85 customers. So in our month, we're getting that much money, $25 a visit times 85 visits, plus a third of 60 times 35, because only a third of our quarterly customers will be on any given month. So a third times 60 times 35, and you divide that by the total number of customers, which is, I actually put this wrong. It should be 85 times 40, 85 times 60, right? The reason we're actually doing the whole thing is we already accounted for the fact that we're doing a third of our customers, but that's all of our customers. That one third already counted. So this would actually be 85 plus 40, which is on the next one, 85 plus 60, which would be 1948. So that's our average price is 1948. That's our average purchase value for a customer. Makes sense, actually, right? You think, okay, well, the average should be between. No, on a per basis it would be, but we're looking at a month in general. So in that month, the average customer is giving us $19.48, right? That's counting for a third of the quarterlies, so a third of the quarterly price, and the monthly, and taking how many people per each. Our frequency rate, well, we're looking at a month. We just calculated for a month, so it's going to be 1. We already did the math in the forefront here. So our average purchase frequency rate for a month, we already calculated that still, so it's just 1 month, 1 service per month. And then finally, our churn, we're going to take an average. I mean, you could look at the math real quick, pretty straightforward. You're going to take 85, which is how many customers, times the churn rate, which is 0.06. You're going to add it to the number of quarterly customers times their churn rate. And you're going to divide that by the total number of customers that we have in general. It's going to give us a churn rate of about 0.0517. Makes sense. Our customers are pretty equal, and it's right in the middle of our 2 churn rates. So that's how we get our numbers. From there, we understand that our average customer, the average lifetime value based on those numbers is that 1948, right? That's how much we're going to make on each customer on average each month, times 1, which is our frequency rate, times 19.34, which is based on our churn rate. That's how many months that a customer is going to stay on with us, 19.34. That's a little short of 2 years. Probably not a great service frequency lifetime value. 2 years, I think we should probably strive for between 4 to 10 in this industry. But that would mean in this example that an average customer that signs up for our company is worth $376.74 in revenue on average. Once again, bringing this to the beginning, this is revenue, this isn't profit. But because of how our industry's set up, this is going to be a lot easier to calculate, a lot easier to make decisions based off of. Okay. So now we talk about segmenting. So earlier on, I talked about, hey, we can talk about averages. Averages are great. Averages are great for marketing, especially because you don't know what you're going to bring in, and maybe you want to bring in a certain customer specifically, and you could target them. But let's say you get a customer sign up. Say Joe Schmo signs up and he's a monthly customer. Okay, well now let's just take our monthly customer LTV, right? The average in a month, it's $25, pretty straightforward, times one. Our APFR, our average purchase frequency rate is just one because we're doing a month, and then times one divided by the churn rate. So pretty simple calculation. We don't need to do those fancy calculations for the averages. A monthly customer is worth $416.66 in revenue on average to us. Quarterly customer, do the same exact math. Quarterly customer, I wrote there. Quarterly customer is worth $291.66 in revenue. These aren't great numbers, but this is a made-up example. Right, so those are what the customers are worth to us in revenue. Okay, so that tells us, all right, monthly customer is worth more than a quarterly customer. So do you want a monthly or quarterly? Now, in another lesson, we talk about capacity. If you go into our classroom about capacity, we go a little more into this as well, but it's important to hit on, right, for 1 unit of capacity. And I say unit because they're not completely even. But let's say you have 1 spot available a month for a house, or say you have 100 slots available, 1 of those slots. You get 1 monthly customer, which will pay you $416.66 in revenue on average. Or with that same unit, you could do 3 quarterly customers. So right in a 3-month span, you have a monthly go 1, 2, 3. Quarterly customer, you get customer A on month 1, customer B on month 2, customer C on month 3. So even though a quarterly customer is only worth $291 in the same unit of capacity, their lifetime value is actually $874.98. So now you see how we're actually taking different lessons. We're taking capacity and we're taking our LTV, and now we're using them together to find out business decision-making capabilities for what we want to do. Do we want that quarterly customer? Sure. Do we have plenty of capacity? Well, then it's probably easier to get 1 monthly customer than 3 quarterly customers. Once again, we're going to talk about customer acquisition costs next, and it's going to go into how much does it cost to get each customer. Now, when we get there, maybe it's worth to get 3 quarterly customers over 1. It's also kind of a roll of the dice to an extent. So just keep this in mind. I'd say if you have a lot of capacity, this is showing, hey, the monthly customer is going to give us more money in their lifespan. But based on capacity, it's better to fill those up with quarterly customers. Okay, take a deep breath. That was a great example. We kind of got the basics. Now we're going to look at this. It's the same exact equations. We're going to look at this with easier terms specifically for our business, and we're going to break it up even further. So LTV, lifetime value, is going to equal our price, right? It's the average purchase value. It's price for us times frequency. We talked about that already, and we're a recurring business, so that's pretty easy to figure out, times the lifespan, right? The APFR or the CLV. We're going to talk about the lifespan, and we want to increase all of these, right? Because they're products of each other. So you increase one, the LTV increases. I put average because we talked about averages. We can segment it up. We can take the average for our monthlies. We can take the average for all of our customers. We can take the average for just our monthly and quarterly without the one times. We can take the average for people in a certain neighborhood or certain town, right? We can divide it by count. We can divide it in average any way you want. If you have the data, you can find the LTV. One of the last slides, we're going to talk about how really detailed you can get. But right, so this is pretty simple. So let's take that, and now let's build off that a little bit more. So it's pretty straightforward. If you have a customer, they're paying X amount of money for your prices, you're coming X frequency, and then they're staying on Y months. That's your LTV. Pretty straightforward, but what happens if you have another service in your business? So for example, we offer power washing. At times we offer promotions, we do residential. Sometimes we don't. Depends on the price point and a couple other factors for us right now. But in general, let's say you do power washing, or let's say you do pest control. It doesn't matter. This is why having an existing business can help with other businesses. I know some businesses who do window cleaning on the side. That's another product. It's another service. So we're not going to take the LTV of, say you do it under the same business name. Say it's called Trash Can Cleaning, LLC, and Window Washers. You're not going to take the average the average purchase price. You're not going to take the average lifetime value of businesses that either have different models or different services. You want to take the average of your bin cleaning, or you want to segment it even further, your monthly bin cleaning. Now, but however, you want to take the LTV of both, right? So you're going to have an LTV of bin cleaning. Now you're going to have an LTV of window washing or power washing or pest control or whatever else you do, line striping. So a good way to see it is if you get a new customer, say they sign up for one of the two, you're going to find their LTV using the price times frequency times lifespan. But you're also going to add the conversion percentage that you get them to use your other service times that LTV. So say my LTV for a trash bin cleaning customer is $1,000. It's probably pretty close to what I expect for some of my quarterly customers. So a quarterly customer comes on, I'm saying, all right, well, in general, your LTV based on my price, the frequency, and the lifespan that I expect you to stay on, you're going to bring in $1,000 of revenue. But I also know that 10% of my quarterly customers end up getting power washing. Okay, well, the lifetime value of my power washing, say, is $200. And that's based on the price, frequency, and lifespan of my driveways. Okay, so if 10% of my quarterly customers that I secured, I can convert them to my other services LTV. So now we have $1,000 plus 10% of that 200, because 10% of my customers are going to get a $200 service, right? 10% of 200 is 20. So now my new lifetime value for customers is really not just 1,000, it's 1,020. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but that other, just adding that other option allows me to have $20 more to my average lifetime value of a customer. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into this too much, but you see where I'm going here. If you have more than one service offering or add-on service, then it's just keep doing this. You know, if you have pest control plus line striping plus window washing plus gutter cleaning plus light hanging, do this for every single one. If you get a customer in any of your service offerings, take your LTV for that, right? Price times frequency times lifespan, or your general LTV. Excuse me. And then you add that. You take that and you add your percentage you're going to convert them to your next service, plus your percentage you're going to convert them to the other service, right? Let's use another example. I have $1,000 I make per customer for quarterly. I have a 10% chance that I get a power washing job from them, and an average LTV is $200. Plus, I do Christmas lights. Let's say I don't, but let's say you do Christmas lights, and I get 20% of those customers, and that's an average of $1,000 LTV. Okay, well that's $200 plus $20 plus 1,000. So now you're at $1,220 for every customer that signs up for quarterly. Their average lifetime is actually more, even though they didn't sign up for that other. You know that on average you're getting 20% conversion rate. You're adding on. You're doing an upsell. So you can do this over and over again. We talk about in another classroom lesson, we talk about other services and add-ons, when to do it, when not, when to avoid shiny object syndrome. In general, I'm not going to recommend doing more, but it's important, because if you do, you have to incorporate that into your pricing strategy. And then finally, let's not keep going with how many add-on services you have. Let's kind of get close to the end here. We have price times frequency times lifespan, plus the conversion rate percentage times the lifetime value of any add-on services. Do that for as many as you have. And then finally, you know, and this kind of goes into capacity as well, but as long as you have the capacity to hold more customers, what's the chance that they refer someone else to your business, right? If I say, hey, my customers, 10% of my customers refer someone else to me every month, okay, well, if my average lifetime is $1,000 for a customer, and that customer is 10% likely in a month to refer somebody else to me, okay, well, then let's take 10% of, you know, a new customer. So $100 would be that. So now we're looking at their lifetime value is actually much higher, because they're at $1,000 plus 10% of another $1,000, so $1,100. So their LTV to me is really worth $1,100, because we just had that referral percentage. We're going to talk about how we actually can increase all these, but you see how that's important, right? If we're having customers that refer, customers that get us more work, customers that choose add-on services with us, that all has to be incorporated to lifetime value, because those are all things that are in your control. You can increase the conversion percentage. You can increase the chance they have a referral. There's ways to do that. We're going to go into that next. Okay. And finally, I just want to hit on this for a second. We take risk in our industry, at least for the trash bin cleaning aspect, probably pretty low risk. If you're doing something like power washing, you maybe take the risk of damaging a window or having to go through any other risk that you have. It could be financial, it could be time, it could be directly or indirectly related to your top line. But just have to factor in risk. I'm not going to go too much in here. We're going to have other lessons on risk specifically and what you have to look out for when doing work. But let's say for trash bin cleaning, the risk is pretty low. You're probably not going to damage a bin. So lifetime value for us, we're probably not going to worry too much about the risk of a customer to decrease that. In other industries, though, the risk can absolutely decrease the lifetime value. All right, so finally we're here. We kind of went through all the math. We set up our equations. We understood why and how. So now let's get into some actual examples of what we can do now that we know our full equation, right? So to walk through one last time, our lifetime value is equal to the price that a customer pays on average times the frequency times the lifespan plus the conversion percentage for any add-on services we have times those lifetime values plus the percentage that someone is going to refer us to a neighbor or friend times their lifetime value. Right, first let's look at price. So one way we can easily increase LTV, these are all products, so we want to make every number on the screen besides risk, we want to make these all higher. So what's the first thing we could do? We can increase price. Now, I won't go into economics too much. If you go into our pricing lesson, we look at supply and demand curves, but let's just say we increase price. Okay, as long as the proportion of our price compared to the amount of customers stays higher, then increasing price increases LTV. The higher the price, the higher the LTV. Now, of course, we can't just increase price to whatever we want because we're going to lose more customers than we raise the prices. But if you're like, hey, how can I raise LTV? Raising prices is one easy way to do that. All right, so next is frequency. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do I increase frequency? My monthly customers are my monthly, my quarterly is my quarterly. I don't want to convince a monthly to go more often. I can't even get to a neighborhood more than once a month. Quarterly, I don't want to convince them to go to monthly. They chose that for a reason, and I hear you. The truth is, right, frequency, we're probably not going to change too much. And if anything, convincing a quarterly to go to monthly, sure, it might increase frequency, but it would also decrease price and increase capacity. So probably not the way to do it. A cool little way that I did look at this, though, an example here in my life, in my company, we made the move, and I'll explain this more in strategy of why I did this in other lessons. We made the move from once a month, once every 3 months, etc., to once every 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. Now, the real quick version is we wanted to align with recycling weeks. And when I did my first major merger and acquisition, half my customers were already used to it. However, as I'm looking at LTV, I say, okay, well, let's look at the average of a year. My monthly customers, it was price times 12 because I had 12 services. Now, all of a sudden, it was price times 13 because in a 4-week cycle, there's 13 cycles in a year. Right? So now my price times frequency went from $25 times 12 to $25 times 13. Super small little nuance. My customers like better because they were back on track with recycling every single month or every 4 weeks. But I just increased frequency. So my LTV per customer rose accordingly. Okay. Next, and most importantly, we talk about lifespan. So price, we can only do so much for price. Raise them if you need to. Make sure you understand where your supply and demand meet. Frequency, there's a couple tricks. But lifespan is where we make the difference. The number one thing that you can do is increase the average lifespan of your customers. Now, we talk about churn rate, which is directly related to lifespan. It's a great way to calculate lifespan, and it's a great way to see what's going on month to month or year to year in our business. The truth is, churn rate, very seasonal, right? In the wintertime, you're going to lose more people. They don't have marginal utility the way that you do in the summer. In the summer, churn rate's low because, once again, they have more marginal utility. In a typical year, you're going to lose people to a bunch of different reasons. Now, the ones that we can't do anything about are people moving, people losing their jobs. If there's problems with externally, the market, we can't affect that. It's going to happen, and it's going to shift their demand, and they're not going to pay for a luxury service. If they move, there's nothing we can do, right? But there are ways that we can increase our value to increase the lifespan. We never want a customer to leave, of course, for an issue that we caused or created. That's pretty straightforward. And if we do create it or cause an issue, how do we fix it? How do we make it right? Sometimes little things like service fees we'll talk about later. What can we do that maybe within our policies and within our rights, but it's going to decrease the LTV because it's going to make them upset and they're not going to stay with us longer. So you have to think about that with every decision you make. Is this decision going to keep them on and increase my LTV? Or is this decision, even if I'm right, am I making an emotional decision that's going to decrease the LTV? So lifespan, once again, we can't change everything, but there are things that we can improve. Better service, better quality service, more value will increase the lifespan, will decrease the churn rate. If we're doing the little things like providing exceptional value, better deodorizer, bringing the bins back to the customer's house, we upgrade our equipment to do just a little bit better job. All those little ways of adding value is going to create more value for them. Value determined by value compared to price. It's going to keep them wanting to stay on. In the wintertime, we could do things like promotions. We can be flexible with cancellations or reschedules because we know, hey, we're going to lose money. They should be staying on, but in the long run, in their lifespan, this is going to be the better move because that's what we care about. We care about how much they're in their whole lifespan they're going to be giving us. So you got to be flexible. You do got to give them a little bit of leeway with your customers. And then do little things to have fun, right? We talk about content creation with social media. Make it personable. Don't make it about your equipment or the trash bins. Show your face. Have some fun. Show some personality. That's going to make them like you, which is probably even more important online than making them love all the clean trash bins you cleaned and showed the before and after pictures of. So make them love you. Make them have fun. Make it interactive. We love to do little things like Christmas. We'll put bows on the bins. Or Easter, leave a little Easter egg, right? These are super small little things that just make them happy, keep them interested, keep them on their toes, keep it fun, and they stay on with you for longer. If it just becomes a boring way, then they're going to get off. Now we're going to talk about risk in the end, but risk also comes down to convenience as well, which will affect lifespan, right? If you're sending a bunch of or too many reminders, or they're impersonable, or they're kind of rude even for your like follow-up reminders, you're going to lose customers. Their lifespan is going to decrease. So all these things are balancing acts, and we can go so in depth of what little things with even reminders we can go into to keep that lifespan up, keep it convenient, keep it fun. Don't make it overworking them to keep their bins out for you, right? Even bringing the bins out could be too much work and could make a customer want to leave. And that's why I like quarterly better than monthly myself. So all those things are going to be important. Even getting a customer credit card on file is going to be better. If they see that invoice every month, their lifespan is going to shorten because now it's more work they have to do to put in a card every single month. Especially you get an older crowd, they don't know how, they're confused by the technology. You don't want that. I want to get a credit card on file for everybody, make it auto pay so they don't see the pain of paying the $25. They just see the result of the clean trash bin and they stay on forever. Super easy, increase the lifespan. Okay, next we go on to the conversion percentage for our add-on services. So I do power washing, right, as an add-on, or I did at times. I'll probably go back to it here in a little bit. One of the things I wanted to do is I want to take my customer base that has a lot of loyalty. We have brand loyalty. We have recognition. We have trust. We've already earned their trust. They're warm leads. I want to take these existing customers and say, hey, we'll be the ones to do your driveways. We'll be the ones to soft wash your houses, to clean your gutters, to do, wash your windows, whatever it is. So by having that brand loyalty, we're increasing the conversion percentage. Now, other ways we increase it, we give our customers deals. We post on social media. When we go there with our washing truck, we leave a door hanger with a quote. Say, hey, thanks so much for letting us clean your bins today. We're offering a special on driveways. Hey, I looked at it. It's for whatever 100 square feet. So this is our price. So there's different ways that we want to increase the conversion percentage that each of our customers that sign up for a certain service sign up for our add-on service. That just, like I said, comes down to making them know about it, giving them deals, giving them offers, and then making them trust you, know you, and know and like the new product or additional product or service you sell, right? So post about it, talk about it, and then as you increase that, and then increase the lifetime value, just like we do with all this stuff, just do the exact same thing we talked about for your other services, right? Multiply that conversion percentage times that lifetime value, and now add that as well because that's an important factor to consider. Okay, and then the last kind of add-on here is that referral percentage times the LTV of their referrals, right? It's pretty straightforward. We want customers to refer, and I also put under this the truck because we're out there. There's always a percentage that the neighbor just sees us, and we have that credibility because we're doing work for their neighbor. And if they know their neighbor, they like their neighbor, they might just ask them or just see us and trust. Hey, if John next door is using these guys, they must be pretty cool. They must be legit. So every time you go to a house, calculate that in the LTV. If you do a great job, if you add something fun like a Christmas bow, if you just are personable on social media and you have a great brand, right? What's the percentage that a customer is going to refer you to somebody else? And you can segment this as well. We know that our female customers refer to people more average than our male customers, right? So just like anything else, we can segment this down by demographics, geographics, by service type, by all these and more. We can get as specific as we want. The bottom line is, what's the likelihood they're going to refer somebody else? Take that percentage times the LTV of whatever they're referring for, and there you go. Add that to the LTV. That's going to be super important. So you're saying to yourself, okay, how do I increase LTV? Well, I can't increase price. I'm already on a 4-week schedule. I'm not going to increase frequency. I'm doing everything I can to increase lifespan as best as possible. We don't really do any add-on services right now, so it doesn't apply to me. Okay, well, how can you get other customers to refer, somebody else to you? If you say something as simple as, hey, for every customer you refer, I'm going to give you your next cleaning free, or one of your next cleanings free. You can do that for as many as you want. Because say the lifetime value of a referral, you can do this for only recurring, say quarterly or monthly only. Well, for every time they refer somebody, that person's going to bring in your lifetime value. So let's say, $600, $1,000, right? That referral is $1,000 is worth giving them their next $25 cleaning for free. Giving half off could be okay too. I find free very strong. People are like, oh man, if I get all my neighbors to sign up, I get a whole year of trash can cleaning for free, and they believe in the product. They're not scamming their neighbors. They're giving them a great service. They're like, well, I'm getting mine for free for bringing you guys on. And that would be a win-win. You get 10 customers at $1,000 LTV, right? That's $10,000, and all you owe somebody is once a month. You got to go out there when you're already doing your neighbors. It costs you nothing. Great. That's an LTV equation. That's a way to make promotion or make a policy based on increasing your LTV. Super simple. Or getting more customers where the LTV outweighs the cost of customer acquisition. Once again, this is going to go right hand in hand with the customer acquisition cost, which is the next lesson. But it's all going to be about how much it costs to get a customer versus how much a customer is going to give you in profit. Or in this case, we're going to calculate it by revenue, right? As long as you're bringing in more than it's costing you, and you can afford that cash flow, especially if it's a dip up front, then it's worth it to you. Typically, we're like, okay, hey, I can get customers on Facebook for $20 a customer. And that's great. In fact, though, if you're looking and you're saying, wow, I'm bringing in really $1,000 for every neighbor in this area, and I'm already there and I have plenty of capacity and I'm driving there regardless. Well, man, you could be spending a lot more money. You might not recoup that money for a couple months, but that's absolutely worth it. So understand the LTV, understand your CAC. That's how you make decisions. Factor in other add-on services and what likelihood you can get them to sign on for those. Add in how much your customers love you and refer you to other people, and keep increasing your lifespan of these customers. You're going to kill it. And then real quick, we hit on this already, but risk, you just have to subtract any risk factors you have, right? LTV is about profit, or in this case, we're talking about in terms of revenue, but really we want to understand revenue and profit in a way that works for your business with your margins, right? Risk just means what are the risk factors for every new customer you have. We could look at this in terms of capacity, taking up capacity, the risk of something bad going on with equipment, right? So even equipment hours, or you say, hey, for every 10,000 customers we service, we're going to have a vehicle breakdown, or our drivers has the risk of hitting somebody with a trailer, right? That stuff just has to be calculated to the risk as well. It's really hard to calculate that. There's no good math. I just wanted to add this in because it's important to understand that if you really want to calculate this the right way, take risk and subtract it. Now, if you have some weird part of your business where there's high risk, then maybe try to calculate that and put it in. Part of the reason we talk about trucks versus trailers versus the SB3s, 1s, 4s, there's just a lot of risk in trailers. So that might be something you want to consider in LTV as well if you have an employee on the road, because depending on where they live and depending on the drive and the neighborhoods, there might be some more risk involved that determines how much that customer is really worth to you. Okay, well, this was kind of a longer discussion today. Once again, LTV is kind of super, the bread and butter of our business, super important. So we can get so much further into this, right? If we want, we could use regression analysis. And forgive me, I'm probably going to say something wrong. It's been a couple of years since my stats classes. But we can go and look at every variable possible. We could segment this up as much as we want. We could say, okay, hey, a customer just signed up. His name is John Deere. Let's say John Deere signs up. He's a married man. He lives in an HOA in town X. Let's call it Springfield. He lives in North Springfield. He's in an HOA. He's got 2 dogs. He drives a Toyota Camry. He likes to ski on the weekends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can take all that. We can make a regression analysis and see how correlated each of those variables are with churn rate, with how long they stay on, with how much they pay, what services they go through. But we could say, okay, John Deere just signed up for quarterly services in North Springfield. He's got these variables. And you could figure it out. You could say, okay, based on all this stuff, his lifetime value, his average, we expect him to spend this much with us. right? Now, in general, you could say, okay, for every recurring customer, I'm just going to take the average of monthly and quarterly. It's in general, we're making $600 in lifetime value and revenue for these. It's going to be quick and easier, allow you to make decisions based on that. If somebody on the spur of the moment says, "Hey, I got 20 customers, you want to buy them from me for $100 a pop," you might just say, "Hey, you know what? He's going to give this to my competitors. This deal. I know that it's going to take me 4 months to recuperate it, but after that, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So yeah, I'll pay you that. It's kind of steep price for the customers." Going back to that regression analysis, right? We could talk about, does having the dogs affect the lifetime value? Does driving a Toyota Camry affect that lifetime value? Is any of this stuff correlated? Is the p-value significant for any of this stuff? The truth is, some may pass the gut test, right? I bet that people who have dogs and cats, they probably have a higher lifetime value for me, and that's only because with the kitty litter, with the dog poop bags, they're going to be in the bin. There's more marginal utility because they have the animals, so our services mean more. They're going to stay on longer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, does driving a Toyota Camry, maybe there's some type of correlation. Maybe the type of car you drive is correlated to your disposable income. And, income's really the main predictor of, are you staying on with their service? How long are you staying on with our service? So that might be the deal. Some things just don't pass the gut test. They're really not significant. The things you should really use when determining lifetime value, you don't need to break it up that much. Maybe you do it by man or woman at best if you're talking about demographics. Maybe age as well. Maybe just break up, hey, anyone under 45 versus over 45, what are they worth to me? Typically, though, what you really want to do this is you want to do this based on the service. So monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, biannual. Right? You can even do this with one time. Like, what's their one time plus the percentage likelihood they go on for another service, and then add the lifetime value of that service. So if their one times have 25% chance of converting to recurring, and a recurring LTV is 700, so we add a $50 for one time plus 25% times 700. That gives us our lifetime value for that one-time customer. Once again, use the gut test. Does it really matter? For service type, yes, absolutely matters. For geographically, yes, because not only does it affect your expenses in driving there and how many people you're doing, but it also is probably going to be much more correlated to how far they stay on. If all their neighbors using it and love it, they're probably staying on. I find that areas where only one or two people use it, they also usually are the ones that fall off quicker. Find variables. You're not going to ask them in your sign-up page, hey, do you have dogs or cats? But you just know, hey, people who have dogs and cats, I know their lifetime value is going to be higher, so that's going to affect your business decisions. Maybe, for example, we're going to be in the pet extravaganza, the pet adoption extravaganza. There's a big exposition here. We got a booth by the front. We're going to talk about garbage bin cleaning, which is crazy. All the booths around us are going to talk about, hey, here's the new leash for your dog. Here's the best new kitty litter. But the point is we know that lifetime value and the marginal utility for pet owners is high. They get more utility from it, so we get a better lifetime value from them. So I'm going to put my marketing money into the pet extravaganza because I'm looking at lifetime value. I'm looking at marginal utility. I'm looking at the lifespan, and I'm saying, hey, I want people who own dogs or cats. This passes the gut test. I don't need to do a whole quadratic regression about, if this is correlated, if it's statistically relevant. No, man, my gut's telling me yes. My gut's telling me pet owners, absolutely. If you're like, hey, moms are our bread and butter. Well, we do sponsorships for like kinder kickers. We know that moms with young kids, they have their hands full. They want the service. They don't want to do it themselves. Usually the husband doesn't want to do it either. So we know, hey, let's sponsor some teams of young soccer players. Let's sponsor T-ball because we know these moms with their hands full, they're going to have a higher lifetime value. They're going to have a better chance of sticking around longer. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop there. Next, we're going to talk about customer acquisition costs, cost of customer acquisition, CAC, whatever you want to call it. That way we can compare our lifetime value versus the cost of customer acquisition. We're going to segment it down as well. There's different ways that you can look at it. There's also overhead, right? Like a one-time, not to give away all of our customer acquisition cost lesson, but you have a one-time wrap for your vehicle, right? That's going to be factored in over the whole lifespan because that's going to always get new customers. So it gets pretty complicated. It's not just taking how much money you spend on marketing on Facebook that month and dividing it by how many new customers you get. You got to get a little more in depth, a little more math. We're going to combine the two together. We're going to understand how lifetime value and CAC should make us combine, should make us make decisions to get new customers, to keep them on longer. And how much we should spend to get those customers in the first place. So hope you guys got some value out of today. I know it was a little bit of a longer lesson, but if there's any lesson that should be longer, we should spend more time looking over, doing your own research on, really thinking about how to increase your lifetime value, this is the lesson. This is what you need to be focused on. This is the number one thing I talk about with trash bin cleaning companies as they're trying to figure out, hey, what am I doing? How am I getting customers? What should I be spending? This is it, lifetime value, and then next customer acquisition costs. So thanks as always. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to go more in depth of what I do for my LTV, how I calculate it, how I improve it, and then be happy to talk about your LTV and what we could do to increase it for your market, your customer specifically. Thank you all so much.